Skull and Bones, a rant by none other than the internet's favorite pig, LazerPig.
Good evening, it's me, LazerPig. A few months ago,
yes.
I went to Ukraine, and I did stuff.
Nice!
Well, now, I'm going back, and it's not because I left my phone charger in the hotel, so I will need to get that back. So you know Opsrim, right? Well, you better! Last year, he was able to fundraise and personally drove 2 donated trucks to Ukraine at the same time!
Nice.
And now he wants to do it again, but bigger! 5 times the truck, 70 times the detail, and he's roped in a bunch of other YouTubers, moi included, to get involved, but also help drive the things. That's right, with your help, I will personally drive a truck across Poland. I have never driven anything in my life. I don't have a license. This can only go well. Last time I was in Poland, I was driven at max 7 through a busy highway by a guy blasting Slavjank through the open windows. It's the only way to experience Poland. Now I have to drive through Ukraine, whose roads are peppered in artillery shell craters. It's like driving over a cheese grater. Ask yourself the question.
But are the roads better than Texas roads, okay? Texas, I love you. I hear your potholes are god-awful.
Do you want to help Ukraine? Do you want to see my organs get turned into liquid? Do you want this patch? That's right! Do you want to display to all your friends and family that you are publicly subscribed to me? Well, now you can! For money! You can pre-order now, and when the patch is out, I'll make the announcement and all proceeds from the sales will go to this fundraiser. These will be limited because I legitimately do not know how many we are making. So if you want one, buy 5, buy 50, decorate your ass with one and then send me the pictures so I can scream in horror. Jesus
Nice.
Christ. Or you can super thanks this video or any of the supporting videos from any of the involved content creators, or hit the donation link in the description, or give straight to the charity at ukraine.at, making a note in your donation that this is for the Opsroom Convoy project. Trucks are badly needed on the front lines. They help run supplies to and from the front line, as well as do important medevac duty. They are targeted relentlessly by Russian drones and by saboteurs. Without a constant supply of new trucks, the lives of many Ukrainian soldiers could be left in jeopardy as they wait for supplies or medevac that never arrives. But these trucks are not just used for military use. They are also used to ferry supplies to stranded civilians or help evacuate regions under threat. Recently, Russia dumped a lot of quite literally poison into a river that links to a Ukrainian reservoir. Now all those people need fresh water supplies. With peace talks happening supposedly next year, Russia has intensified attacks across the southern regions of Ukraine as they attempt to steal as much territory as possible.
Wow. What a weird military operation. What a weird short-term military operation to extend as long as it has. And for the people initiating it to want to go into peace talks. I don't think this is in the history book. Teacher? I'm waving my hand. Teacher, what does history say about this?
With Russian troops strip-looting every town they capture and disappearing anyone who remains, it is simply not viable to leave anyone behind. And with your support, they won't have to be. So please consider donating. The more you donate, the more lives we can save, and the more likely it is that I will be probed by Ukrainian border security, which will be funny. Guaranteed.
Yeah. It would be really funny. 9 out of 10. That was about almost 2.5 minutes. Like, there was a banger intro, 2.5 minutes, 2 back-to-back ads. 9 out of 10 though. Clap meme, 100%. One very real, very current, very substantial topic being covered. Very serious, if you will. Handled, in my opinion, in a very words. I can't speak. I can't English. I swear English is my actual first language, but when I speak it, I feel like people think like, I don't know, like German's my first language or something. I swear. God, I hate English so much. No, I liked it, honestly. Like 9 out of 10. Loved it. Very serious topic, covered in a very professional way. Very LazerPig-esque from videos I've seen in the past of him. Handled very well. I loved it. 9 out of 10. 10 out of 10 if you use the Raptor. You know, I'll give it the 10 out of 10 for that.
And now,
oh my God,
feature presentation.
Can I rescind my 10 out of 10 to 0 out of 10 because that felt like a personal attack? Okay, I'm gonna need some ibuprofen from back after that LazerPig. I love you.
I'm going to be honest with you all.
Banana.
The first ever thing that made me ever consider starting a YouTube channel was the announcement of Skull and Bone. I had this dumb idea that I would be the Skull and Bone content creator. Glad I didn't do that.
Yeah.
Fans of the LazerPig deep lore may know I have 3 passions in life: armored warfare, Egyptian mythology, and pirates. I mean, yes, also femboys, but I'm gonna be honest, if Anubis showed up and was like, hey LazerPig, no more femboys, but you gotta bang me, I'd be like, maybe? Yeah?
Yeah.
I'd bone Anubis. So would you if you weren't such
Well, remember, Anubis is the one in pop culture that people make worry about, right? Anubis is not the one you got worry about, right? What a Set, and I guarantee you I'm pronouncing it wrong. I can never remember. I think there's an actual pronunciation versus spelling thing going from Egyptian to English. What we know is Set, S-E-T or S-E-T-H, I believe, right? Yeah, Anubis ain't the one you gotta watch out for.
a goddamn coward. I love pirates. I could sit and ramble about pirates till the cows come home. I may do one day. You can't stop me. This is my little corner of the internet, and by God, I'll do what I want with it. Welcome to Pegistan, motherfucker. I was a huge fan of Black Flag back in the day. A brilliant pirate game with just one slightly major flaw. The flaw being, it was an Assassin's Creed game.
Him and I, same wavelength.
And the biggest problem with Black Flag being an Assassin's Creed game is that every now and then, the game came along with a crowbar and demanded you stop having fun with all this pirate nonsense and go being an assassin for a bit. Get off the ship with your cannons and your sea shanties and go wander around an office building for a bit so we can smugly remind you that there is, in fact, an overarching plot of all Assassin's Creed games that sounds like it was written by a first-year film student. God is real, but he's also an alien, and humans are slaves, and the angels are like ancient aliens with advanced technology, and everything is a simulation, and blah blah blah. No one cares. Sorry, Desmond. So a game that removes all of that bullcrap and instead just includes the pirate bits with extra pirate bits. Hell yes, sign me up. That sounds like a dream come true. Pirates are a somewhat neglected genre in gaming. I don't know why, but pirate games come along once in a blue moon, and rarely do you ever get a good one. And no, I'm not talking about Sea of Thieves. Oh, you added in a PvE mode. Oh, finally. It only took you 6 years and driving away 90% of your potential player base before you finally made a decision that most other companies would have made pre-alpha. And
so here's the thing with Safer Seas, because actually Baka got me into Sea of Thieves, and we've been having a lot of fun on Safer Seas. He hasn't been ready to take me into Open yet, because I will get shafted by an absolute just massive mast. We're gonna move on. I was going somewhere with that, and it's just evolving at this point. But so, like, some of the issues with Safer Thieves that have been outlined is that I think Reaper and Athena covenants, or whatever covenants, I don't remember what they're called. They're entirely inaccessible, I believe. I think you're locked out of certain content. When you turn in loot, doing say like a treasure vault, and you turn in all your loot, you only get I think like 70% value or something like that. I don't think that because I know we're in the smaller ship, the 2-person ship. I think in open play, you're the one where you have to raise whatever the Reapers go after, the flag that you get, and you get the flag up to like tier 5, and then you are able to turn stuff in. Someone's going to know exactly what I'm talking about, and I'm sorry for butchering this explanation. And then you get like 2x, but like you can't do that. So I guess the community event recently, it was like, well, anything you turn in on Safer Seas is the exact value. That was good. I think it's neat. The issue is not necessarily PvP. The issue I hear currently is with cheaters, but that's with anything right now, any modern online game. I'm okay if somebody comes along, right, and through sheer skill just absolutely sweeps, right? I totally get that. If somebody comes along in any game and they end up cheating, and I sink, I die, I get teleported around, my weapons get modified, like I'm like perpetually switching because they're modifying values and stuff on my end. No, I disagree with that. So, yeah. I don't know. I've been enjoying it so far, though. It's been really neat. It's been a really cool experience just to play it in just like a group or duo setting. Sea of Thieves has been really cool so far.
You sit there with your smug little faces telling everyone how enormous and amazing a decision this was for you when you finally realized how much you fucked. Nora, and I will get this out of the way before 1,000 of you start trying to recommend it in the comments. Am I talking about Naval Action either? A game whose lead developer is so incompetent, it actually impresses me that they are able to wake up each and every day and remember how to breathe. They should have been fired years ago and once went on a homophobic rant about yours truly, which is why I won't touch it with a 1,000-foot barge pole. Oh, and he allegedly threatened to sue the owner of the subreddit unless he was made admin so he could delete posts criticizing the game. As a
wow, that's wild. That's Wow.
Reminder,
It's my world you are playing. I am its creator. You will have to accept my gameplay conventions to play.
See, that's FAFO.
what a guy. And honestly, you're not missing much. It's a game with about 400 active players, of which approximately half are trading bots generating funds for the game's largest clans, most of whom
Nice.
sit outside the starter ports, waiting to seal club new players because there is literally nothing else for them to do. I mean, yes, the game is still technically going, in the same manner that if you push a rotting carcass down a ski slope, it is still technically moving. But back to Skull and Bone. Ubisoft
The Elite Dangerous runs into a similar issue, I think. I mean, Elite Dangerous has content. I mean, we're on the last two Thargoid Titans right now, right? Having got into it recently and having started to engineer so I can actually go against Interceptors. There's a step up between Cyclopses and Basilisks. Medusas are a whole different beast altogether. Good God. But I mean, there's definitely an open play, the same situation where there's a bunch of people that, they seal club people right out of the starter zone. I disagree with it on premise. I get that it's some people's preferred gaming style. Like, take PvP somewhere where you're not dealing with newer players, right? I get it. It's the gank mentality. I've dealt with it in RuneScape, Wildy PvP, drop, follow, Wildy, please follow, and getting ganked by a group, right? Like, I get it. I totally get it. I understand that it's some people's play style. Leave new players alone.
had an opportunity to be great. Better than great. An open world pirate game with a focus on actual pirating, where you could go out on a pirate ship and do like pirate stuff. It could have been magnificent. There's just one slight problem. It was being developed by Ubisoft. What we got has a lot of positives. I won't beat around the bush here. There are some good positives here. I like the way the ship handles. I like the aesthetics of the ship in the pirate towns. Everyone looks like shit. Authentic. I like the character customization choices. I like the weird variety of weapons. I really, really like the look of the ships and some of the customization options you get. And I love the fact that PvP isn't mandatory. What I hate is everything else. You could have been so great, Skull and Bone. So great. But you missed the point of the game by about 1,000 nautical miles. When you build a game around a sailing ship, guess what players are going to be doing 90% of the time?
Sailing.
Sailing. Now that would have been fine. But it's the sailing that's the problem. Most of the quests, especially when you get to the later stages of the game, which will take you about a day to be honest, require you to sail long distances. Now again, this would be fine, but there is literally nothing to do when you sail other than stare at vaguely interesting scenery and listen to your crew sing the same shanties over and over and over and over and over. And you can't just wander off to do something else while you're sailing because there's always obstacles in the way that you need to navigate around. And if
So, I mean, I'm assuming at least there's some sort of interactivity, like Sea of Thieves, right? Where Sea of Thieves, I mean, you have to adjust sail angles, you have to, roll up your sails, modify. They even have the harpoon things, which are actually cool. Like, it's actually super cool to look at, especially how the harpoons affect movement and stuff, right? I'm assuming there's some level of interactivity there. Otherwise, like, that sounds boring.
there isn't, then your ship just kind of naturally drifts to the side, meaning you have to babysit it across miles of ocean, occasionally pressing left as you play a much better game on your phone. Essentially, Ubisoft created Desert Bus Simulator Pirate Edition. Now, as much as I rail against Sea of Thieves, I have to admit, they mastered the one aspect of that game they knew players would spend most of their time doing, which is the actual sailing. Sailing in Sea of Thieves is fun. Genuinely. And there is a reason for that. And that is, in Sea of Thieves, you can take your hands off the wheel. Have you ever sat watching maybe a Twitch streamer play some sort of construction game and they're just chatting to their audience, and rather than building something, they're playing the sort of floor is lava mini parkour game, mindlessly running around and jumping from object to object? That is purely psychological. People don't like standing still in video games. People like...
Oh, I don't. It's really funny because I've jumped around on Baka's ship. He's had the funny magic conch shell in Sea of Thieves where you blow it, it puts wind in your sails. Fun fact, if you jump, that will throw you off the boat. That will send you flying. It's so funny. I can't stand still in games. It's wild.
Momentum. They like movement. They like to keep doing things. And in Sea of Thieves, they understood this perfectly. Just being able to take your hands off the wheel and run around your ship makes so much the difference. Sea of Thieves actually goes a step further because there's stuff to do on your ship. You can adjust the sails to get more speed out of it. You can read your logs, you can check your maps, you can go fishing. There's a whole cooking mechanic, there's musical instruments you can play. You can even pick things up and move them around, organizing your loot or decorating your ship. And though your ship does drift, it does it in a manner that's not fully invasive. It's not doing it constantly the second you take your hands off the wheel, but it's doing it regularly enough that occasionally you have to run back to the wheel to adjust your heading. But
isn't the troll mechanic with cooking the banana? Isn't it you board somebody else, you throw a banana in the pot, and you let the banana burn, and the burned banana will actually burn down their boat? Is that the troll method? I heard this was the case, and it was the best thing I've ever heard.
Not enough that it becomes annoying. There is just enough busy work to keep you occupied long enough that you don't really notice the time the journey is taking. But best of all, it's optional. You don't have to do all that. You can just sit at the wheel and stare all you want, and because it's optional, it doesn't feel like a task that's been thrown at you to try and keep you occupied. When you are locked in place, your mind is looking around for things to do, and in Skull and Bone, there is nothing to do. Thus, you become more aware of the time the journey is taking. You start to become a lot more frustrated. You start noticing the obvious blemishes of the world around you, and having to navigate around islands or through rivers starts to become tedious. You start just wanting the journey to be over so that everything that delays you ends up becoming an annoyance.
I love that it becomes tedious because there's nothing to do. What you would think would be tedious in Sea of Thieves, such as, all the sales and stuff, like how there's more mechanics there, is less tedious than the game with less mechanics. That's very interesting to think about.
Essentially, it's bad game design, and Skull and Bone is riddled with it. NPCs vomit their entire backstory to you at the drop of a hat. Some just need to learn to shut up. I don't need to know the backstory of the blacksmith. He's not an important character. I'm only there because there is a mechanic in which you are required to buy things from him. I need to be there, but his constant whining is stopping me from becoming a pirate again. You ever gone into a shop to buy milk or something, and the cashier won't ring you up because they're too busy telling you about their life as a teenage drama kid in Brooklyn? No, because it doesn't happen. Because he knows I don't give a shit. And by a sheer coincidence, he doesn't give a shit about me either. So outside of the needlessly aggressive comments on the sheer amount of box wine I might be purchasing at the time, the transaction takes less than 15 seconds. I'm in and out of that store in less than a minute. I go there because the staff hate me. They want me in and out as quickly as humanly possible, and I appreciate it. Thank you, Tesco. But in Skull and Bone,
I've heard many good things about Tesco. I hear Tesco is the place to be.
That becomes, I used to be a pirate adventurer like you, but then I took a dick to the face and became a blacksmith. I don't care! Being forced to sit and wait while some NPC prattles on and on about stuff that is exciting to specifically them, it's not fun, it's frustrating! And it's not just the blacksmith that does this. Every NPC in the game does this.
So from a design standpoint, let's look at the reasoning why, right? And he's spot on. Sure, if you have a couple characters, maybe I don't know, you have this little orphan girl and she's traveled with you for a while, and then you learn her backstory. Maybe her parents were lost at sea, and then there was something. Maybe her parents, she hears their voices still, and maybe it's part of a greater overarching quest line with the Flying Dutchman or something like that, right? Like there could be something there, right? But like, going up to a blacksmith and the blacksmith being like, well, I used to be a pirate like you. And then, things happen, life happens, you get kid go, okay, but who cares? I'm literally here to get the tutorial and leave. Okay. I will use you when I see fit. Okay. Do not speak unless spoken to. When everybody starts doing this, right, you start to not have those interactions that are very brief, that are very, in and out, like, hey, hi, how can I help you? Cool, that's going to be X dollars. Thank you, have a nice day, right? You start to cherish those again. It's not that people don't want to talk. It's not that people don't want backstories. The thing like the blacksmith, that should be relegated to like Dark Souls-esque lore pieces, right? Like, you pick up a sword and it mentions, a certain blacksmith from this port, is said to favor this in a war long ago, or this war, or a certain blacksmith used this aboard this specific. Oh, okay. And that prompts the people that want to dive into the lore to delve into that. So I have channels like Bife, right, for Destiny 2. He's moving, I think, into Warhammer at this point, because Destiny's in a spot right now. Destiny is just that abusive relationship I keep going back to, and then Destiny needs to just have time to herself, and how she needs to find herself, and how she'll change, and then we come back every expansion, and then it's just like, well, we tried to make it work again, and Destiny just needs more time to find herself. It's actually just an abusive relationship at this point. Where was I going with that? Yeah, I totally lost where I was going with that. But like, you start to miss those interactions, right? You start to miss those interactions that are just brief, right? Showing up to a vendor, hey, the thing, grats. Right, lore channels. How we have Dark Souls lore channels like Body, right? Lore channels are a big thing to help the community understand it. Do you have to be this like nebulous Elden Ring Souls type story? No, not necessarily. But have things as a bonus, right? Have books that you can read scattered throughout the world, right? Maybe this is the book on his desk that explains his past, right? Or parts of his past. And then there's missing diary entries that you can find as a collectible. Right? You see how we solve this issue of literally being the in-game therapist for people by having people shut up and give the only the required amount of information. Sure, certain characters, even certain key characters, right? Sure, they'll probably exposit to you, but that's just story, right? I mean, you can't really do anything about that for story progression's sake. However, when everyone starts doing it, I'm not a therapist, okay? I'm here to be a pirate.
This bitch here. Okay, Ubisoft, please, if you want to make the game better, delete all her lines. Make her a mute that communicates entirely through glares. Not only will this dramatically improve her character, trust me, I don't need a full 5-minute dialogue cutscene to explain the concept of a fetch quest.
Awful.
And then there's this one. She wasn't in the beta tests. She just appeared out of nowhere like a fart in the wind. Her entire point is to get up in your face and deliver a never-ending stream of needless comments about your progress in the game. I don't need running commentary from my mother. I just want to be a pirate. Now you might be thinking, LazerPig, that's a bit harsh. Maybe Ubisoft just isn't very good at writing people of color characters. No, you're wrong. They're just not very good at writing characters. Oh, you think you're safe with the one white guy? No, he's marginally better written than the others, but I still want to punch him. And then there's the raft. If you want to hunt animals for resources, which you typically have to do quite a lot, you have to sail all the way back to port and get into the stupid raft. You know what this raft is? It's the starting ship. This is the ship you start the game with.
Oh no.
This is the noob ship. If you're in this ship, it means you have just started the game and quite potentially don't quite know what you are doing. You want to get out of that ship as fast as humanly possible because in this game, your level is dictated by your ship.
So this is the Sidewinder, right? From Elite Dangerous. Just this little dingy you start out in a little tin can.
Ship is not only a visual representation of your prowess at the game, it is a physical representation of how far you have come, what level you're at, what aesthetics you've managed to unlock, etc., etc. No one wants to go back into the noob ship because they need to hunt an alligator to get the ingredient they need to get the purple cannon. This is like EVE Online forcing their top players to get out of their fancy fleet cruisers and jump back into the Velotor every time they need to go mining to unlock a specific upgrade. On top of that, the combat is worse than it was in Black Flag.
I would argue it's also similar to, if you, say for example, you hop out with a friend, say in Elite Dangerous, if you're on a Diamondback Explorer, right? And you go out to like the edge of the galaxy, like Mara Somnia, the Abyss, the Void, etc., like the outer edges. And you're like, wow, I kind of need a more jump range. I need to upgrade my FSD booster, right? I mean, you got to go back to, you got to go back to the bubble, right, where everyone is in Elite Dangerous, the kind of starting sector of the galaxy, so to speak. And you got to get that figured out, right? I don't know how EVE works. EVE is one of those I don't want to start because I already play Elite Dangerous and I know EVE will actually like eat my time and money. And yeah. Like that's just one of those things, like it really is spooky to think about, honestly.
Forms are underwhelming and they throw constant poorly disguised quick time events at you, and when you can finally get off your ship and wander around, there's nothing to do. There are no enemies to fight, there's no puzzles to solve, challenges to complete. There's just an endless amount of these open empty spaces, like there was maybe something here but they just kind of gave up on it. Even the boarding mechanics are just cutscenes, and if you want to do anything that isn't sail around and shoot things, you have to get off your ship and wander around port for a bit. Yay. Again, and I bring this up a lot, Sea of Thieves has everything you need on your ship. You rarely have to come ashore. This forms a connection between you and your ship, and it starts to feel like home. Why do you think the biggest complaint the Sea of Thieves community had for years was the delay to the captaincy update? The update that would allow them to name and customize their own ships. I know what happened here. I can see it now. When Ubisoft had a meeting to discuss who was the hero, the player, or the ship. Both, Ubisoft. The answer is both. And also, while we're here, can we talk about this tutorial? Most of you won't know this because it was changed in a super early closed beta version, but this ship here, pretty significant. You started the game as a passenger on this ship. This ship was supposed to represent the endgame, the thing you strove towards. You gazed up at it in your stupid little raft, thinking that one day a ship like that could be yours. Instead, the biggest ship currently in the game is the HMS Ontario, a 22-gun bastardized snow class known as a sloop of war. And given the size of some of the spaces I'm supposed to squeeze into, it's very likely this is probably going to remain one of the biggest ships in the game. Now, I would
That's wild to think about. Like that's probably why they removed it then. Like you could argue intent and change in design philosophy. I mean, they could just shadow drop an update, right? Just like, hey, by the way, it's here now. You couldn't fit through things like this. You'd have to take probably the long way around because size, right? And then that would actually introduce a cost-benefit analysis of a size of a ship being inappropriate for the job that you're doing. I don't know if you can have a number of ships. I don't know how it necessarily works, but it could work in that way. I'm probably also giving too much credit to designers. If that was showcased early on and then it was redacted and this is the current largest, I mean, who's to say that we're ever going to get a bigger one?
Have minded had we not been cock-teased for years about sailing these gigantic, fantastical ships everywhere. Where's my massive man of wars? Where's my first-rate dick compensators like you promised us in all those trailers? I know it's not realistic that pirates would use ships like that, but I'm fighting a goddamn dragon here. Is realism really what we're going with? All the ingredients to make the perfect soup are here, but someone buggered it up, and now we have this watery slop. And there's a reason for that. Remember how I said this was being made by Ubisoft? That's not quite true. This was being made by Ubisoft Singapore. If there is one company that can fuck up a guaranteed win, it's Ubisoft. But if you want to fuck up on a truly monumental scale, you need Ubisoft Singapore.
Wow.
Now, credit where credit is due, this wasn't from an early perspective a bad idea. Two of the teams working for Ubisoft Singapore included members who had worked on Black Flag, and in particular, the sailing mechanic. But again, this is Ubisoft. If you want an example of everything wrong with the gaming industry, honestly, look no further. Ubisoft is a company that is eating itself through its own incompetence. And I'm not talking about the developers. The rot here starts at the top. It starts with management. The original plan for Skull and Bone was quite simple. Take Black Flag as it was, add in a character customization, multiplayer, a ship progression tree, and a few other MMO mechanics. Job done. What?
It was easy win, right? Like there is zero reason that should not be a hit. Like that alone would sell.
Could go wrong? Well, a lot. The first is that good old developer nemesis called the March of Technology. The longer a game takes to make, the more dated it becomes. And there is a tipping point where if a game takes too long, the technology you built for it is now so outdated, no one wants it. This is one of the reasons why Duke Nukem was famously in development hell for so long. Black Flag had been graphically pretty good at the time, but it was built for the Xbox 360. In the same year as its launch, the Xbox One was released, and by the time the Skull and Bone team had anything to show, it was now 2016, and things had moved on significantly. Not only is there now a whole new generation of consoles, games like Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption were setting new standards for what was graphically acceptable in a multiplayer open world game.
I mean, I've been the weird one in the room. Like Resident Evil 5, old Modern Warfare 2, I have said on a number of occasions that that's Dead Space 2 even. Graphic-wise, they're fine. They hold up today. Maybe upscale it a little bit, sure, whatever, right? Like, I think that graphically is as good as we need to get. Now, the fact that we have, like Call of Duties nowadays, you have hyper-realistic graphics, I just don't need it. Like, sure, like, if you want a pretty game, you want a game that doesn't look like garbage, but at the same time, like, You can only throw much glitter on a turd because a turd is still a turd. If it has consistent networking issues, if it has core structural issues with the game, if the game doesn't function, if the game inherently just doesn't work, if the game is even bad, sure, it can look like the best game ever. It can look like, a great, box office blockbuster movie, right? But if it's bad, it's bad, okay? Like there's no two ways about it. There's a balance. And yes, he's absolutely right. The longer a game is in production, the more dated the game will become. Right? Didn't Helldivers run into the same issue on the engine that they're using? I know they were using an older engine. I don't think you can even get it anymore, right? And so they're having to work on that. But at the same time, like there's a nice mix, right? You don't want to necessarily make this over ambitious product that takes years and years and years to develop because you just miss things. Look at Concord, right? When was the last time hero shooters have been relevant, right? Especially for $40, right? Just play Overwatch 2, right? Somebody played Overwatch 1 and has my issues with it, Overwatch 2, right? Like, I think he's absolutely right on this. I'm agreeing with everything he's saying.
The standards, the assets from Black Flag, which were made for the 360 that the team had been hoping to reuse, were looking pretty dated. So they had to start again. And this is where the complications set in, because if you have to remake all the game assets, then you might as well update the rest of the concept. Let's make the game bigger, make the story bigger, let's make the whole thing fully voice acted, let's turn this side project of a game into a true AAA. And this is where things get weird. The concept of what the game is goes through numerous transformations, originally starting as a single-player campaign with a multiplayer battle arena. The single-player campaign was dropped in favor of a Sea of Thieves style game, with 5 players roaming a map, competing with each other for loot with an open-style PvP system. Then it was back to an arena shooter, and then it was an RTS-style game emulating Sid Meier's Pirates. Then it was a Rust-style action survival game with a focus on land combat, resource gathering, and base building.
There's no wonder this actually failed then. To go through that many iterations and to scrap not only just the concept, but like assets, all that dev time, like there's no wonder this failed.
First it was set in the Caribbean, and then the Indian Ocean, and then a fictional fantasy land from Greek mythology where players would start out on a floating island, and then back to East Africa, and finally back to India. Each time the budget of the game balloons past its original. By the 2017 E3, Skull and Bone is now back to an arena shooter with ships, but an exceptionally bare-bone one at that. None of the development staff on hand seemed to be able to answer simple questions about the game, but a release date of 2018 is announced.
So that's where I agree with LazerPig. This is the rot starts at the top. This is 100% a managerial issue. If you're a manager, you need to tell your team what's going on. And so here's the thing. I'll give the benefit of the doubt to the immediate management, right? Just the floor supervisors dealing with the devs, right? Like when I worked in game testing, right? How I had an immediate supervisor, right? Like that I'll give them like the benefit of the doubt because they're upper management up to the executives. That's the issue I have here. Because stuff's coming down from the top, and we're going to feature creep this, and we're going to add this, and we want to push this deadline, and we need to have this, and we need to rework this, despite potentially features not even being necessarily possible, feasible, plausible. So this is 100% a managerial issue. It depends how far up the chain it starts. Maybe the floor managers are just like there for a paycheck, right? Like, look, we know what we can do. We know this is not necessarily possible. We're going to give our best. We're going to try our best to get this done, right? But somewhere up the chain, the rot definitely starts to seep in.
This confusion of what the game actually was due to Ubisoft Singapore's upper management. The management team had, as my mother would say, their noses firmly planted up their own ass. Surrounded by rich furnishings, expanding budgets, yes men, and absolutely no oversight, management would ignore the complaints and suggestions of their staff because they were above such things. They were allowed to simply run rampant doing what they wished, believing that every thought that farted out of their ass was pure gold, safe in the knowledge that any blame for failure was due to the responsibility of their underlings, not them. According to some staff, multiple, often contradictory orders would come in from different managers, often within the same day. There would be meetings where key features were agreed upon, and then the next day, those would be scrapped. Emails would then arrive 3 months later, asking why no work had been done on the said scrapped features. The constant changes to what Skull and Bone was, the kind of game it would be, the rapidly expanding scope of the project, and the ballooning cost was all them. It was all.
Why do we not have a unified design document? Why do we not have, I believe in investing, if you're trying to invest in something, I think it's like a white paper, I think it's called. Why do we not have that, right? Why is there no unifying design document here? Why do we have nothing that says this is what this project is? And even if stuff changes, go back to like a mission statement style thing, a whole core concept of what this game is going to be, and then branch out from that. A lack of that is going to translate to a lack of focus, a lack of people willing to call you out on things that aren't reasonable, right? Yes, men, is going to lead to feature creep, is going to lead to complications. Multiple things here are working in tandem to create issues. And good management resolves these issues.
Management. This not only helped delay the project for years, but it drove away a lot of the talent that had made the original Black Flag such a success. And even though a working prototype had been made available to influencers at E3, the game in reality was nowhere near complete. A 2018 launch date wasn't just hopeful, it was utterly delusional. So it got its first delay. And this is where Ubisoft Paris started to take notice. You see, the same management staff had not only been essentially lying to players about the state of the game, they had also been lying to Ubisoft. Annoyed at this, Ubisoft sent someone to Singapore to take control of the project. Her job was simple: get the game into some sort of workable state and get it released. And did she? Take a guess. The new management's first step was to strip away anything that was too far from completion. The single-player campaign and much of the more advanced features were ripped out, but one of those advanced features was, well, the ship-to-ship combat, which is quite important in a ship-to-ship combat game. In an attempt to have something to show, the new management instead pitched a change from an arena shooter, where ship-to-ship combat would be important, to a Rust-like survival game with an emphasis on ground combat, crafting, and resource gathering. This could have been fine, but the engine they were building on didn't support that kind of game, so the entire project would need to be restarted from scratch.
That's wild, dude. This thing has been in development hell forever. That's wild. Well, and that's the thing, is people start taking notice, especially companies, when delays have to get announced. A delay is a huge thing. Imagine, if you will, right? Actually, I don't think I've heard of the new Call of Duty game. No, the new Call of Duty game's almost here. Black Ops 6. I totally forgot it existed, right? So let's say Black Ops 6, right? Let's say it still hadn't come out. It probably is out by the time you actually watch this video, right? Let's say that Call of Duty has to say, you know, well, we're going to have to delay it. Going to say 6 months. So it happens after the holiday season. How much of a hit to profits are they going to take? How much of a reputation hit could they take? We're going to have, you know, VTubers and YouTubers and Twitch streamers, right, all criticizing, you know, why aren't they doing this? Or, well, this is, you know, emblematic of a poor managerial structure, emblematic of the company as a whole, right? I mean, you're going to have rampant speculation. I mean, the way that companies will engage in that is to not engage in that. Because as it turns out, if you don't mention something or don't acknowledge something, it tends to just go away, especially because the internet outrage is approximately 2 weeks, right? But a delay, it's a cognizant decision to have a delay. And whether it's a delay, whether it's, you know, it turns into a different project, a la Tears of the Kingdom from a Breath of the Wild DLC, right? And I think it was delayed at least once, right? Like, if a company has a good rapport, people will respect it. But at the same time, you have to deliver a product. It's why, aside from my first Tears of the Kingdom stream and some just background playing to gather the Majora's Mask stuff, like, I was rather unimpressed. I don't think it personally was worth the delays. And then, obviously, modern events have definitely shaped public opinion on Nintendo. But, like, delays are a huge thing, and they can work. You can burn goodwill you have gained via your audience in order to have a delay and be able to finish a product and have it in a not just presentable state, but in a good state for your constituents, right? Your investors, your people purchasing your game, etc. Because if you don't deliver on that, right, it's we need to delay this. Okay, you've burnt some goodwill, but now the expectation is higher because you're allowed to take more time on this. And poor management can absolutely burn through all your goodwill very quickly.
It was now 2019. Skull and Bone had been in development for 6 years, and they were now starting the entire development process from scratch.
Wow.
And then the allegations started. sexual misconduct, misogyny, bro culture, to racism, homophobia, to general workplace bullying, all of which was swept under the rug by upper management who would basically intimidate workers into silence. Examples including shouting, screaming, slamming doors, punching holes in drywall, all the good things.
Go through, fire every one of those individuals. If they are guilty of it, especially if they're on camera perpetrating that, fire them. Just make sure you have those recordings, make sure you have your evidence, and fire them and hand over to the proper authorities.
This leads to the new project management team placed in charge by Ubisoft leaving the project with complaints of a toxic work environment. At this point, Ubisoft is now seriously considering canning the entire thing, but the game's development was one of the only things keeping the lights on at the Singapore studio, so the government of Singapore steps in with this massive bribe tax subsidy to keep development going. But again, several years of development had passed, and the game was once again nowhere finished. A 2022 release date became a 2023 release date, which eventually became a 2024 release date. And finally, having started development in 2013, a full 11 years later, the game was finally released. And it cost Ubisoft $200 million. And they don't expect to make a profit. In fact, they don't even expect to break even. The game went through such a bizarre development cycle with no clear vision or competent management that in order to rush something out for release, the end result is visually interesting but lacks any depth. There's very little to do in the world but babysit an aesthetically pleasing ship between cutscenes and repetitive battles that not only lack variation, but challenge. The game is just easy. A dedicated player could probably complete it in probably 2 days. Everything else designed to keep the player occupied acts more of a frustration grinder, and as a result, the parts of the game that should be enjoyable are tedious. Everything that could have made the game truly unique has been stripped away, and given the commercial failure the game now is, I fully suspect that further development will either be cancelled or sold off to one of those companies that keeps dead MMOs alive so they can fill it full of loot boxes.
Well, and that's the thing. So at the end of the day, let's say $200 million, the final dollar amount, was spent on this game to get it out, right? So $200 million was spent on a product. Even if they don't break even from the sales of the game, there is now a live service style vehicle to which LazerPig's right. They could just sell this off to another company, or they could keep it first party, right? They could keep it within themselves, assuming they don't go bankrupt or dissolve, right? Considering current situation with Ubisoft. Right? This video is going to age really well, I can already tell. And they can just pump it full microtransactions, skins, like charge for ship skins and stuff like that. That being said, that's contingent on there being an actual player base. That's contingent on there being enough players who are interested enough in this game, who are interested enough in potential updates this game may get in order to spend money into this game to, try and at least make some sort of money off of this. But there is a live service vehicle here for all intents and purposes. It's not like they just canned it, right? It's not like a Concord situation where, we're just going to take this offline. And now that has zero chance of ever making any more money off of skins, off of weapon skins, off of ornaments, off of new hero packs, anything like that, right? So I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with this. Didn't they also pitch this as the first quadruple A game, to which some have said that, AAA, quadruple A just means not necessarily the quality of the game like it's supposed to be, right? But it's how much money was spent into it. If they, maybe that was a last-ditch Hail Mary to kind of like, hey, this is the first quadruple A game, right? Which absolutely backfired on them, like quadruple A pricing, right? It absolutely backfired, and now that's why I say whenever I talk about AAA and quadruple A games, AAA, quadruple A, right? To lump them together, because this was a cognizant choice to do so. Quadruple A obviously being one more A than AAA, and therefore, by its very nature, referencing AAA games, right? $100 for the base game? Good God. Yeah, no, this has, even then, it's a high barrier to entry. They could have made this easily standard $70 affair, maybe threw the audiobook with it, the audio soundtrack, maybe thrown an art book with it. They probably did. But extra skins, extra outfits, extra even gun packs, stuff like that, right? Like this color of ammunition, if they wanted to go that route, like there's so many things that they could still monetize in this.
Yay. There is significant debate on the internet if or not Ubisoft even has the capability to create good games anymore. Let me explain something. This is not something I plan to get into right now because it's far too complicated a topic, but there are different forms of intelligence. There's creative intelligence, logical intelligence, linguistic intelligence, body, music, just to name a few. But our society places the most value on mathematical intelligence. In our world, mathematical genius is rated above all else. You can't go 5 minutes without someone slapping down hard mathematical facts on a spreadsheet. Numbers don't lie. Numbers are the purest of all logic that will one day help us unravel the mysteries of the universe. But numbers cannot tell you everything, especially when it comes to the behavior of humanity. Numbers are logical, humans are not, and you cannot apply logic to the illogical.
Some of my best videos that I've done have been offhand, like 10-minute shit posts. And I fail to understand, like, because I've reacted to a video for like 2.5 hours, right? And that being said, there's a commentary, long-form React content, and it not necessarily working. And also my brand of React content, which still gets criticism about me talking and pausing way too much, which, I mean, honestly, to each their own. It's fair. Like, content is subjective. It makes sense, right? Like, I don't know. He's right. No, like, metrics are not the end-all, be-all. Metrics can help reflect trends. They can. But yeah, humans are illogical creatures. Like, I will make an offhand shit post and apply zero effort to it, and it just, bam, 300,000 views. And I'm like, what? But that was a throwaway. That wasn't supposed to do well.
There probably has the most advanced matchmaking system in the existence of gaming. But as anyone who has played that game for more than 5 minutes will tell you, it doesn't work. YouTube's algorithm doesn't work. The systems derived from ChatGPT don't work. Polling data is frequently wrong because all of these systems are buried in mathematical formulas that are attempting to apply logical probability to something that is fundamentally illogical. If you attempt to predict human behavior through mathematical algorithms, you will end up with something that looks very intelligent and very good and seems to be working as expected, but inevitably keeps failing. And the seductive trap of models like this is everyone behind the project is 100% convinced that with just a little bit more tweaking, it'll work absolutely perfectly this time. The reason that so much faith is placed in mathematics and statistical analysis is because, quite frankly, it's easier. People who are obsessed with numbers can only look at things that can be measured on a scale. Emotions, vibe, faith, and a certain je ne sais quoi cannot be quantifiably measured. So even though people will make everyday decisions based entirely on those things, they are dismissed as unimportant, vague concepts with no real meaning. Because how do you express vibes on a graph?
Is Homeboy using a Sharpie on a chalkboard? Is that what I'm seeing? I'm sorry, that ripped me out of the experience. Or is this a whiteboard? That's just got to be a different colored whiteboard. That actually messed with me for a minute.
For example, when polled, people in the US dictate two major things that dictate what car they want to buy, which is safety and fuel economy. So you can spend your entire life as an engineer building the perfect car, one that is safer than any other car, more fuel ergonomic than any other car, without compromising on space nor luxury, and then watch as everyone buys the shittier competitor car because it has more cup holders. You may laugh, but this is the reason why for years the German car industry could not break into the US market. Because even though German cars were vastly superior to American designs in terms of safety and fuel economy, the designers point blank refused to put cup holders into their cars. If the numbers were right and everyone supported the plan because the numbers were right, then who is to blame when it inevitably goes wrong? No one is at fault here. It's the numbers' fault. The algorithm isn't quite perfect yet. It's a work in progress. Why do you think in the run-up to any election the polling data always shows it's going to be neck and neck? Because they have no earthly idea who is going to win, but claiming it's always going to be a close call gets them out of any blame regardless of who actually wins.
I just don't care anymore. Like, I just don't. It's like when anyone in the U.S. says there's going to be a government shutdown. They try to shut down the government every how many months at this point? Look, we'll have a different discussion if it actually shuts down. Until then, I don't care. Okay, I don't care. I got LazerPig videos to watch. I, dear viewer, have many other things I could be doing than worrying about people doing stupid things. Okay, like. Things like that. Like, people try to quantify things, but at the end of the day, like, I view it at least as, from an individualistic standpoint, like, other people can try to quantify things, but I, as an individual, can, and this goes into my reasoning, right, can still take in what information I can and want to, as long as I'm not being, I'm not cherry picking information, right? Like if I cherry pick information about the Earth being flat and come to the conclusion that the Earth is flat, right? Okay, that's a bad faith investigation, in my opinion, right? I'm not doing a good job of trying to do things, right? But if I do my research and I come to the conclusion that, oh yeah, well, the world is flat, and then somebody starts saying that, well, the Earth is torus shaped, right? The famous donut shape that people talk about that technically planets should be able to do, right? Or even that the entire universe is a torus shaped like object kind of thing. Okay. That's fine. Until you provide evidence, I don't really care. Okay, I'm fine with a spherical or Earth model. I'm perfectly fine with it. Evidence seems to support this up until this point. We can discuss things like Hawking radiation. We can discuss, the concept of wormholes. People with way more credentials behind their names than I do, way more accolades, Nobel Peace Prizes than I do, can talk about theoretical physics, quarks, the God particle, etc. I'm firmly grounded in, look, until I see something to the contrary, unless I can quantify things, it's not really my business. It's cool to talk about, right? It's cool to talk about election data, right? Leading up to, the polls leading up to an election day. For some people, not me. I mean, I have way better things to do with my life. But like, what he says makes sense. There is especially in a lack of understanding, people will inherently try to quantify something, right? If I came across a subject in a video and I was trying to understand where they're coming from, like they say something along the lines of like, well, Earth is the center of our solar system. The sun rotates around it, like actual like geocentric model, right? Cool. I'm applying. Okay, this is a geocentric model, but how are you getting to this? Like, how are we getting in 2024? Pitching a geocentric solar system model. Like I'm trying to quantify that. I think we as humans are naturally inquisitive. We're curious and we want to quantify things. But even then, some of the conclusions that I reach are wrong. I'm sure LazerPig has had in his life in some situations conclusions that he's got to that are wrong. It's okay to be wrong. In fact, I like being wrong and I like making mistakes. That means I learn. And it puts me way ahead of my peers. I hate my peers. My peers are dumb.
Ubisoft lives in that numbers world. Their management is so far removed from the logic of the average gamer that they simply wouldn't be able to recognize it if encountered. In their world, they run a business. If a business wants to understand the logic of a gamer, they don't run to internet forums or start conversations on Reddit or jump into a game of Squad. They look at what is already successful and emulate it. They bring in support and focus groups who have open discussions about what gamers really want, and they liaison with statistical analysis companies who have these really fascinating data models. What this all means is that no one at Ubisoft has to suffer the indignity of having to actually talk to one of their customers, and instead, somewhere down the line, a computer has decided what the next Ubisoft game is and what it's going to be like, probably based entirely on market trends. And even with an impressive list of failures behind them, which should be indicating with massive red flashing lights that they've got something wrong, they are going to carry on regardless. Because it's easier to hide behind the numbers and just change where the numbers come from. So maybe this set of numbers was the real problem the whole time, and not that the entire system of logic that put those numbers there in the first place is not working. This is true late-stage capitalism, the cyberpunk dystopia that places the heads of companies on a pole so high they have no connection with physical reality and churn out mediocre products based on algorithmic nonsense, focus groups, and business logic that exclusively makes sense to Wall Street bros. And it doesn't work. How many of you no longer trust buying products on Amazon, especially clothing and electronics? Now it's awash with Chinese dropshipping companies selling utter garbage.
I have bought one thing from Amazon in the past year. You know what it is? So if your Xbox Elite controller, if you turn it around, how it's got the little paddles on the back for the A, B, X, Y buttons, little paddles underneath. So my Xbox controller has been a trooper, right? The actual thumbsticks are kind of wearing out at this point. Right bumper, has the bumper issue, right? That all Elite controllers have, or at least most of them come to. So I got a core model. I got it from Fred Meyers recently, and I'm just like, okay, but it was the core model, so it didn't actually have little paddles underneath. I went to Amazon. I bought a specific pack of the 4 paddles, and even then, I was half expecting to get scammed. I was half expecting it to not arrive. I was half expecting it to go missing. Thankfully, it showed up just fine. That is my, if I'm going to Amazon, I know exactly what I want. I will purchase it, and I will expect the product to be wrong. I will expect the product to arrive late or not at all. Or I will expect the product to just absolutely break right out the gate. That is my expectation from Amazon. And am I saying that they're a shitty company? You know, legally, I'm not saying that. What I can say from my past experience and others' past experience is that is the expectation I have when ordering from Amazon. Therefore, I didn't want to. The reason I ordered it from Amazon is I didn't necessarily want to go to GameStop and pay $30, $40 for a set of paddles and extra stuff. I just wanted the paddles. I knew exactly what I wanted. And I think that's what Amazon does best. If you know exactly what you're wanting, if you need it fast, if you don't care if it necessarily breaks or not, or you know that the quality is going to be fairly good, especially if you know the buyer, right? Or I guess the seller, right? Okay. It's no different than shopping on eBay, right? I know I had my dad ask me about car parts on eBay, and I'm just like, look, just read the listing, reach out to the seller, right? If you're worried about scams, just read what is being sold, right? Be a diligent shopper. Be careful with your purchases. There was something on eBay I was looking at for Pokemon recently, and I was just like, I don't know enough about this distribution cart. I have no way to verify if it's authentic or not. I have no way of really engaging with this, so therefore I do not. Right? I'm vigilant.
An example. That's not going to end capitalism, by the way. It's just going to prompt a brief return to brick and mortar stores until Amazon gets its shit sorted out, which it will. But it is why Ubisoft is failing as a company. And honestly, it may yet lead to its demise because its management is never going to learn that management is a social skill. They're just going to move on to the next business tech craze that promises to do it all for them, which right now is AI. And when I say AI, I mean ChatGPT, which is not an AI, but it's a prediction algorithm developed through machine learning tech back in the 90s.
Nice.
But even if, for all reasons that defy all reality, that AI eventually generates for them that correct answer, they will opt to ignore it. Yeah. Because it's not the answer they want.
Subjective human answer. I liked that finale. That was great. Yeah. No, I love LazerPig. It's been a hot minute since I've reacted to LazerPig, and it's really good to come back and say hi. Such as to kill a god topic, right? Arguably some potential. Well, one, it's longer, right? He does a lot of long form content. I love long form content. Love watching it. Reacting to it's a little bit different because I want to be as transformative and engaging as possible. I do pause and I do comment. That's just my style. And especially when we're starting to get up to an hour and a half plus, it becomes a little harder for me to do that consistently. But don't take that as, lack of love or lack of support for LazerPig. I love what he's done. I love how the ad reads in the beginning. He was just very professional about it, very to the point, very just like, this is the thing, very personal about it. I loved it. I thought it was great. He covers topics that I don't really know a whole lot about. I don't know a lot about armored vehicles, tanks and warfare in the same capacity that he does. I know some things. I know certain things, but I don't necessarily know enough about it to really have a conversation on the topic. So I thought this was a good opportunity to react to LazerPig again, because if you haven't checked out LazerPig, you're definitely missing out. Go ahead, check him out in the description down below. I have linked the original video as well as his channel. Please definitely go check him out. Thank you, LazerPig, for just putting on an amazing video. It was really interesting to learn not only from a new Sea of Thieves player who missed a lot of the controversy in the beginning, right, with the first person I think was become a pirate lord or whatever, controversy in its own right, because I guess his chat was handing him stuff to boost up to that point, which I hear was his title was redacted on that because of that going against terms of service, and Sea of Thieves having a very boring launch with not a lot to do. I missed a lot of that, don't get me wrong. It's very interesting to kind of see where it's at, and the love for pirate games I can absolutely see, and it's a shame we don't have more good ones out there. But what are your thoughts? What are your opinions? How do you think this is going to work for Ubisoft going forward? Thank you everyone for watching. I'll see you in the next one.